Welcome to the NASCAR News Flash, courtesy of rubbingsracing.com. I'm Toby Christie, joined by my colleague, Kyle Brandt.
Hey, how's it going?
We're going to go ahead and take you guys through all the latest news in NASCAR. There's quite a bit. It's a busy day after the race. We've got a recap of the race coming on. We're going to discuss the race results. Denny Hamlin wins for the first time in 2011. Dale Jr.'s pissed at his teammate. Jimmie Johnson had a pretty rough day. And, of course, we'll update you on the point standings. Kyle, you ready?
I am more than ready.
All right, well, in front of 88,000 fans, Kurt Busch had his third consecutive pole position this weekend, which is pretty incredible. And it's been over 4 races now since a Penske car was not on the pole for a race. So that was kind of an impressive thing to see.
It was. Another Penske pole. It was 3 in a row for Kurt Busch and overall with Brad Keselowski taking the pole for the 600.
Yeah, it's been all the way since back to May 16th since we saw a non-Penske car on the pole for one of these races. Pretty crazy. But, Kurt Busch led early on. I mean, he had a good race going all day long, but you wouldn't really know that from hearing his radio communication throughout the day.
Yeah, he sounded upset again, just like he was mid-race at Richmond, but I don't know. He wants to win really bad, just like...
Yeah, indeed. But Kurt Busch would go on to finish 11th in this race after leading 9 laps. Those came early in the race. Then, at this point, Greg Biffle kind of took a pretty decent lead, and it looked like he was the car to beat all day at that point.
And I wasn't surprised at all. I picked one of the Roush cars to win at Michigan, and Greg Biffle, who's had success in Michigan and California, wasn't a surprise at all for me.
Yeah. And the first yellow flag of 5 yellow flags on the day came on lap 8 when Jimmie Johnson spun coming off turn 2. And this was the start of a bad day for Jimmie Johnson.
Another tough one. Again, I don't know what it is about this place, but there's always some sort of maybe this is Achilles' heel. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, if he is Superman, this is definitely his kryptonite, Michigan International Speedway. The green flag would come out on lap 11. Ryan Newman spun his tires in this restart, but as we were saying, this is when Greg Biffle would kind of take charge for a while. There wasn't really much that happened that was too intense throughout the day. It was a relatively clean race. Like I said, 5 cautions. Yellow flag number 2 came out on lap 26 when Robbie Gordon hit the wall in turn 3. I don't know if that really warranted a caution flag per se, in my opinion, but the caution flag calls throughout the day were a little spotty.
Indeed, they were. And with Michigan, seems like they're always few and far between with such a track and a wide racing surface. I guess that's just part of the game at Michigan.
Indeed. Yellow flag number 3 came out, lap 84. Brad Keselowski hit the wall, and that one was a pretty hard hit there.
Who's Achilles' heel is Michigan, at least in the Cup Series, is Brad. I don't know. I was surprised at that. I was expecting him to do very well at his home track.
And at this point, Greg Biffle still leading, so pretty impressive for him. But eventually, we would have Kyle Busch go towards the lead. Lap 158, we'd have yellow flag number 4. Juan Pablo Montoya runs out of gas, and Andy Lally runs smack into the back of him.
Yep. I don't know why he went up high. Juan Pablo Montoya, if he knew he was going to run out of gas, and it was kind of a strange situation. And the rookie Andy Lally had no time to react, and there you go.
Yeah, it was during this little stretch of stuff though that Dale Earnhardt Jr. actually had gotten slammed into the wall by his teammate Mark Martin, who kind of got loose coming off turn 2. Earnhardt not too happy about this as he pulled up alongside his teammate under the next caution, which was caused by his tire exploding. It's
Mark Martin, the super clean racer, Mr. Give and Take himself, actually puts his teammate into the wall unknowingly, it looks like, and I'm sure he didn't do it all. He ruined his teammates, and of course, Junior was upset.
Yeah, and so from here out, we had the green flag come back out with less than 10 laps to go, and actually it was 5 laps to go. Denny Hamlin brings the field to green as he won the race off pit road, and Matt Kenseth tried all he could, but could not catch Denny Hamlin down the stretch as Hamlin takes his first checkered flag of 2011.
And it's about time his win. We saw him last year win times, championship contention, just barely missed it. So it's good to see Denny Hamlin really.
Indeed. We'll talk more about that here in a moment, but let's go ahead and look at the top 10 finishers from the race. You've got Denny Hamlin, as we said, won the race after leading just 8 laps, so that was kind of like a Kevin Harvick deal he pulled off there.
He was the closer.
And you got Matt Kenseth finished second, nearly got his 3rd win of the season. What a rebound year for him. Kyle Busch leads a lot of laps again, yet comes up empty again. It seems to be kind of a theme for 2011. He seems to be, if Harvick's the closer, he's the not closer, it seems.
Correct. The guy had a 130 driver rating, and yet he was still feeling sick and went out 59 laps and came up short. I don't know. That's just this season.
Indeed, but the fact that he didn't have to relinquish his driving duties was probably a plus for the team. Paul Menard comes home fourth. Carl Edwards fifth, so he pads his points lead. Ryan Newman comes home sixth. Tony Stewart finishes seventh. Clint Boyer eighth. Mark Martin, who had the run-in with Dale Earnhardt Jr., was ninth. Brian Vickers, who has won at Michigan in the past, rounds out the top 10. So that's a pretty stout top 10 field there.
Indeed it is. Probably the most surprising was Brian Vickers. Red Bull's kind of been struggling, at least Brian Vickers has, so it was good to see him finally get the top 10, which arguably Michigan is his best track.
Yeah, and it's a weird season he's having because he's either wrecked out or he's top 5, top 10. There's no middle ground. There's no 15th place finishes there for Brian Vickers. It's either really good or really bad, so good to see him on the really good end of it today. Other notable finishers on the day, Kurt Busch ended up 11th, as we mentioned earlier. Landon Castle got a 12th place finish, which is huge for that team. Kevin Harvick finished 14th. Greg Biffle 15th after leading the most laps on the day, so that's kind of a bummer for that team. Jeff Gordon 17th, a week after capturing his 84th Sprint Cup Series victory of his career. Dale Jr. finishes 21st after the run-in with his teammate, and Jimmy Johnson comes home 27th, a lap down after all the numerous struggles he had on the day. All right, but the thing we need to talk about first off of anything from this race is Denny Hamlin winning for the first time in 2011, finally. And after the rough week Joe Gibbs Racing had coming into this, it's got to be a huge win for that team.
Absolutely huge. All three of the oil pans were found to be unapproved on Friday before practice. Last week, Kyle Busch got penalized for the left front of the car being too low. Finally, something good happens for Joe Gibbs after what's been a tough week. It's redemption.
Indeed. And I know a lot of people were, before the race, people were saying Denny Hamlin won this race last year, so he should be expected to compete. Well, you could say that about every race he won last year heading in this year. We were like, well, he won Texas last year, so he should be good there. Didn't look too great. Martinsville, we're like, well, he's going to win there. He always wins there. Didn't win there. We were like, well, Pocono. He always runs well at Pocono. Didn't win at Pocono, so it was kind of a thing where you were like, well, is it going to happen or not?
Well, it seems like finally the one week that I kind of, overlook him because of just exactly what you said, he hasn't lived up to the expectations, he finally wins a race. So maybe this is the spark that 11 team needs. He's come from way deep in the points, now into the top 10. Mm-hmm. So things are definitely on the upswing for Denny Hamlin.
Indeed, especially when you consider all the engine problems they've had throughout the year, all sorts of issues. They had a carburetor issue a few weeks ago. It's just been a one cluster of a year for them at this point, and they're still actually in chase contention at this point now. So, very, very good rebound for them. Although we don't know what penalties, if any, NASCAR will hand out for the oil pan situation. We'll find out very shortly, though. Move on to the story that a huge portion of the fan base, I should say, is going to be talking about this week. Dale Jr. pissed off at his teammate, Mark Martin.
Very strange. Like I said earlier, is what surprised me the most from this race is, like I said, Mark Martin, who's been this super clean racer, give and take, he pretty much came up with that philosophy, and he puts his teammate in the wall. I don't think he necessarily meant to do it, but yet, he ruined Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s day, and it's not good to ruin Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s day with the amount of fans that the Jr. has.
Indeed, and especially when you're on the last year of your contract with the current team and you're his teammate, things don't look too well there. The fan base is not going to be happy about this at all for Mark Martin, who, as you said, has been kind of a sentimental favorite among the fans over recent years. But when you do anything to ruffle the Junior Nation, things don't turn out too well for you usually. Yeah,
I remember back when Kyle Busch took out Junior at Richmond, and that is almost what made Kyle Busch a villain.
Indeed.
Was that exact move there. So this is going to be huge, what happens to Mark Martin based on this incident.
Yeah. And just to kind of give you a little quote of what Dale Jr. said after the race, I got onto the outside of Mark, and he just came up and drove us into the fence off the corner. I don't know if his spotter wasn't spotting good or whether he just couldn't see good or what, but he just ran us slap into the wall. And just kind of furthering on from there, later on, Dale Jr. said, I try really hard to take care of people and try not to be careless. I don't like putting up with carelessness, and that really pisses me off, what happened out there. So this is going to be interesting. Let's go ahead and move on to five-time Jimmy Johnson. He had probably the roughest day I've ever seen Jimmy Johnson have.
We've seen some rough days from Jimmy Johnson, but we've also seen him recuperating and still bringing a good run based off that. But this week, they were off the radar. Very few mentions of Jimmy Johnson. Like I said earlier, Michigan, I don't know what it is about this place, but he's snake bitten once again.
Indeed, and actually, I think he's kind of fortunate to get the 27th place finish out of it. It could have been much worse had there not been a few guys starting Park. Then, of course, the crash with Andy Lally and Juan Montoya and a couple other things, but still not a great day for them. I don't think they come out of here thinking anything good about what just happened, especially Chad Knaus. He's hard on everybody anyway.
And the strange thing about that is the fact that Carl Edwards had his problems last week, and Jimmy Johnson was 6 points out of the lead. Then 8 laps into today, Jimmy Johnson has his problems, and now it's like nothing happened at all. The points are pretty much reset between the two as far as the gap.
Indeed. It's just wild, and it's going to be fun to see how this all works out, because once the chase starts, none of this even matters anyway. It's all about wins, and Jimmy Johnson only has 1 win to this point, so you kind of start wondering, have they kind of lost their edge a bit?
It's the front end of the car. That's what's throwing them off, just like the spoiler last year.
It might be the front end of the car, or it might just be that Roush Fenway Racing has got it figured out this year. They are way better than where they were last year.
Very good point.
But let's go ahead and move on to the point standings. Let's get everybody updated on the points before we head out. Carl Edwards, as you can see, is your points leader there. 20 points back now is Kevin Harvick, who jumps up 2 spots to second. Dale Jr. is third still. Kyle Busch moves up to 4th. Jimmy Johnson, as we were talking about, takes the huge plunge back to 5th. 3 spots down for him. Matt Kenseth 6th. Kurt Busch down to 7th. Ryan Newman 8th. Hamlin's 9th. And Clint Bowyer rounds out the top 10 now, but he dropped a little bit this week. So let's go ahead and take a look at the chase for the wild card spot. That's kind of the thing that I think people are really looking at this point. As you can see up there in yellow, you got Jeff Gordon, who's locked in right now if the chase were to start because of his 2 wins he's got. Tony Stewart 11th in points, just based on nobody else between 11th and 20th in points have got any wins. So Tony Stewart would be in the chase as of today. Then you got Greg Biffle, Mark Martin, Juan Montoya, and Paul Menard all working really hard to try to catch those guys, but it's going to take a little bit of work if they're going to get by Tony Stewart for that 1 wild card spot that's open based on points right now.
Basically, what they need to do, Greg Biffle, Mark Martin, Martin Truex Jr., Casey Kane, all they got to do is get a win, and they automatically beat Tony Stewart. But, of course, that's easier said than done.
Indeed, and plus, this is the part of the season when Tony Stewart really starts to heat up. So, I mean, 1 win might not be enough to surpass Tony Stewart at this point for a wild card spot. And, I mean, I'm not convinced Tony Stewart's going to be 11th once this whole thing's said and done. So
neither do I.
Then we've also got, of course, the 2 guys who have won who are outside the top 20 that you kind of have to keep an eye on down there highlighted in black. Brad Keselowski, 22nd in points. He drops, he didn't drop any spots this week, but he's losing a little bit more ground with some of his troubles. He's 22nd in points. Then you have Regan Smith falls 2 more spots down to 29th. So his chase berth is starting to look a little really shaky at this point.
Regan Smith's chase berth is looking less and less likely as the weeks go on. But at the same time, the good part about the whole Regan Smith story is it just makes his Darlington win that much more impressive because he really is an underdog for sure.
And I mean, he's got 8 top 5 starts already this year. That is incredible that they've made that kind of a stride in their qualifying setups. They're going to get the race stuff down by next year. I mean, they're just improving a lot over there at Furniture Row Racing.
Yeah, things are on the upswing, that's for sure. Indeed. But his chase berth this year is beginning to look more and more out of the question.
Well, that just about does it for today's NASCAR News Flash. I'm Toby Christie.
And I'm Kyle Brandt.
Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you'll be up to date next time we have a NASCAR News Flash.